We were talking about the pernicious anemia. Now remember, what exactly is pernicious? Now remember, the dictionary meaning of pernicious is a dangerous. Of course, it is not that dangerous these days. And what exactly happens? Let's say, for example, this is what is the stomach, and this is what is the small intestine. When we consume B12 orally, now remember, B12 is combined with something called the intrinsic factor in the stomach. And intrinsic factor and B12 combination can be absorbed from the small intestine. Small intestine cannot absorb B12 without intrinsic factor. So that means if the intrinsic factor is not there, even if B12 is there, B12 will not be absorbed. And that is what was found, that initially we had diagnosed the patient is having B12 deficiency anemia. We start treating the patient with B12 oral supplements, but some patient did not respond. Now, the reason that some patient did not respond was they were not having B12 deficiency, but they were having intrinsic factor deficiency. And that is what was a problem. So, these patients who are having intrinsic factor deficiency were difficult to treat because they do not respond to oral B12. They don't respond to oral B12. The reason they don't respond is they don't have a B12 deficiency, rather, they have intrinsic factor deficiency. And we have an antibodies against that intrinsic factor. That is what this slide says. The slide says antibodies to the intrinsic factor are positive, diagnosed by checking the antibody, and there's also a test called the Schilling test. Schilling test. In that, they give vitamin B12 without intrinsic factor. And let's see serum B12 level increases or not. If the patient has intrinsic factor, it will increase. If it doesn't increase, that means there's an intrinsic factor deficiency. It's very simple to understand. Schilling test is performed to differentiate different types of megaloblastic anemia. That is what is this megaloblastic anemia. So in the smear, let's say for example, what exactly the smear also shows macrocytosis with hypersegmentation. Remember what exactly is this? Macrocytosis that we understood. That is RBC size is more than 90 microns. Hypersegmentation of the neutrophils. That means neutrophils, let's say for example, normally neutrophil is a trilobed, but in this case there will be more than 3 lobes. That is what is an hypersegmentation of the neutrophils. That is what is hypersegmentation of neutrophils. Folic acid deficiency again is a microcytic anemia confirmed by a low folate levels, increased serum homocysteine levels, and normal methyl malonic acid levels. This is how we can differentiate from B12, because in B12 both are increased. In folic acid only homocysteine levels are increased. Methyl malonic acid levels are normal. And the smear shows macrocytosis, that is RBC more than 90 microns, and there is an hypersegmentation of the neutrophils, which can be seen in folate deficiency. Now this table is again, I can say deliberately we have included a very important table which differentiates between B12 deficiency and folate deficiency. There are certain similarities, as you see in the picture, that MCV in both the cases is more than 100. Smear is macrocytosis with hypersegmentation of neutrophils, same thing. But pernicious anemia is possibility in case of B12 deficiency because of the intrinsic factor deficiency. Here you don't see. Homocysteine levels are elevated in both, but methyl malonic acid is elevated and normal. Elevated in case of B12, normal in case of folate. So if you have, let me have a flow chart on the corner here. If you have an high MCV, differential diagnosis can be B12 deficiency, folic acid deficiency, or pernicious anemia. In all these, if you can see, MCV is more. Here, serum B12 levels are low, serum folic acid levels are low, and antibodies are positive. Antibodies are positive. You can also differentiate by looking at the methyl malonic acid. Methyl malonic acid is elevated, it is normal. Here also it will be elevated because ultimately it's a B12. It's a B12 deficiency. This is how we can differentiate between and having a flow chart of the condition in which MCV is high, increased MCV. This can be the differential diagnosis. You can take the screenshot right now and share on the group afterwards. Share on the group afterwards. Okay. Also, now this is what is again I can say very important slide, which shows and additional features in case of anemia. Whenever you are evaluating the patient of anemia, also see if there is any jaundice, increased bilirubin levels, which are suspicious for hemolysis. Because whenever the hemolysis will be there, increased bilirubin as well as jaundice will develop. So anemia with jaundice, the combination of hemolytic anemia. So anemia in which the bilirubin levels are high, think about hemolysis, hemolytic anemias. Check for, now of course, which bilirubin is an indirect one that we know in physiology, indirect bilirubin. Increased LDH is also sign of an hemolytic anemia. Haptoglobin, again the same. And remember, if it is an hemolysis, reticulocyte count will be more because body will try to synthesize more RBCs in that particular case. Body will try to synthesize more RBCs when there is an hemolysis. So when I summarize this, how will you diagnose an hemolytic anemia? Let me have on those particular corner. First thing is hemoglobin is low. Second thing, reticulocyte count will be high. Third thing, bilirubin levels will be increased. Fourth thing, haptoglobin will be increased. Fifth thing, LDH increased. Sixth thing, spleen, which is not given in the slide, will be enlarged. Splenomegaly. Splenomegaly. So if all these things are together, take the screenshot right now because I have enumerated all the things which can differentiate hemolytic anemia. Which can differentiate hemolytic anemia. So if it is jaundice, bilirubin, suspect for hemolysis. Okay. Also look for any signs of infection, malaria, babesiosis is more common in the African countries. The hemolysis can also be because of antibodies. You can also have a Coombs test positive, warm antibodies. Remember, hemolytic anemia can also be the drug as a cause if it is an antibodies positive. And warm antibodies is the antibodies. You can take the screenshot right now, later on share on the group if it is possible. If it is possible. Let's first go to the next. So now this is what the same slide I have already enumerated. So hemolytic anemia, summary can be LDH elevated, indirect bilirubin elevated, globin is decreased in some cases but increase in most of the cases. Elevated LDH, you can see. Yeah, haptoglobin more than 25 was a sensitive for ruling out hemolysis. Reticulocyte count is elevated. We talked about this because body is trying to synthesize more of the RBCs. More RBCs. Normal is about 0.5 to 1.5. Anemia leads to increase in the erythropoietin production. That is the reason reticulocyte count increases. And also sometimes there's an indirect antiglobulin test is positive or Coombs test is positive. So we take a screenshot right now if it is possible. And then let's have the next slide. Yes, so what are the causes of hemolytic anemias? So this particular slide, it differentiates, it gives an idea about causes of hemolytic anemia. Most common is a sickle cell that we know because RBCs are sickle shaped like this, and when they pass from the capillaries, they will burst. And because of the hemolysis, we do that. Also, we have spherocytosis, in which RBCs are sphere shaped. G6PD deficiency. We talked about thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura in the initial part of today's lecture. Hemolytic uremic syndrome, antibody induced, malaria, sepsis. All those can cause trauma to RBCs and can cause hemolysis. Trauma to the RBCs and can cause hemolysis, right? So this particular slide gives an idea about the causes of hemolytic anemia. What is the lab diagnosis? We already talked about this. Is that bilirubin increased, LDH increased, reticulocyte count increased, heptoglobin level is reduced. Yes, reduced, such as hemolysis. Yes, I think we in the initial slide we discussed about it increased heptoglobin, but it is a reduced one. This is a reduced one. Take the screenshot of this. Now we also need to consider some of the special considerations, like if it is an acute bleed is a cause of anemia. Last slide for today. Remember, this is what is one of, I can say, the most important practical slide. Most important because you understand about the practical aspects of an anemia. If it is an acute, let's say for example, it was a road traffic accident, it was a surgery. So if the acute bleeding is there, drop in the hemoglobin or hematocrit may not be shown up to 36 hours because patient is losing both RBC as well as plasma. So if the patient is losing RBC and plasma both together, the concentration of RBCs is not changed. Because of that, hemoglobin can be normal even with acute bleeding. The reason behind that is patient is losing whole blood and the concentration of RBCs in the blood is the same. So hematocrit is same. Back cell volume is also same because patient is losing both, but patient has got low blood pressure because of the low blood volume. So you may get a case in which patient has a road traffic accident, 2 liters of blood is lost, but the hemoglobin is normal. The reason behind is patient has lost whole blood, an acute situation that may not show anemia up to 2 days. Because in 2 days, the plasma volume will be corrected and the anemia will come up. So remember the situation when you're working in an ICU, patient has bleed 2 liters of blood, but still hemoglobin can be normal. But the blood pressure is very low, patient is in hemorrhagic shock. And then you say hemoglobin is normal, no, kuch karne ka zarurat nahi hai. And the patient can die because of hemorrhagic shock. One of the most practical aspects. Remember to take the screenshot of this most important slide. Most important slide for today. The other cause can be a pregnancy. In third trimester, RBC and plasma volume are expanded 25 to 50%. So RBCs increase 25%, plasma increases 50%. So patient can be having anemia. This is what is also called as physiological anemia of pregnancy. Labs will show reduction in hemoglobin hematocrit RBC count, often to anemic levels, but according to RBC mass, they are normal, or they were even polycythemic sometimes. Remember, because of that, anemia has got nothing to do, or I can say interpret, without hematocrit values. Without hematocrit values. So in pregnancy, there can be anemia in the reports, but normally the RBC count, if you can see, is more, but still patient is anemic because of more plasma. And third important is in volume depletion. Patients who are severely volume depleted may not show anemia until they are rehydrated. Like for example, dehydration. So if the patient is dehydrated, we discussed on the last slide, they are losing more of the plasma. So actually RBC concentration increases. So even if the patient is anemic, will not be shown in the reports. Will not be shown in the reports. I'm going to take a screenshot right now. I'm going to unmute you right now because this is an important slide. I want to discuss if somebody has got any doubt. Somebody has got any doubt. Doubt right now? This last slide. Somebody is listening to the video. I hope everyone has understood today's lecture also. And we will continue the other parts on again next week, Tuesday and Friday. Let me share with the whiteboard. The next slides will be shown. We have two lectures. This was the second lecture. Third lecture will be planned on Tuesday. And fourth lecture will be planned on again next Friday. Again, we have a same ID and same link. You can keep the ID and keep the link and click on the link and open through Zoom app. That's it. If you have any doubt, you can raise your hand right now. Otherwise, we'll just call it a day. Okay.